Streaming, and we are recording here in about 10, 2, 3. There we go. Alrighty, it's time for Clubhouse Chatter. Here's Norm Ordez.
That's right. Good morning, and it is a beautiful day up here in the Eola Hills outside of Amity, Oregon. And have you seen Netflix's release of the Battered Bastards of Baseball yet? If not, do so. I loved it. Brian, what'd you think of it?
I thought it was great. You know, I mean, I got to see stuff that I remember as a kid, and it was even better now than it was as a kid.
I feel screwed because I didn't get to witness that in person. I was a young buck over in Germany. My dad was in the Army, and I never got to witness that. So we are talking about the Portland Mavericks, and they are the Battered Bastards of Baseball. And from that group, we have the manager, Frank Peters, who managed the Mavericks from 74 to 75. Frank, how you doing this morning?
Doing good. Great day today.
Oh, it's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful day. So tell us a little bit about the Mavericks. People see what the Battered, Bastards of Baseball was about. I mean, but can we go a little bit behind the scenes with you today?
Well, in the beginning, it was viewed as something that could not really compete or happen, because in the big scheme of things, you actually had to win. I mean, you can put a team out there, but if you don't win, then who cares? Because it can be fun, but it's got to be relevant. And that was of course our big test. And of course, Bing Russell, he had a beautiful sense of what he called dramaturgy, which is the fun of the game as entertainment. And so, all in all, it was kind of a learn as you go, and boy, you better learn quick.
So let's talk a little bit about Bing. What kind of man was Bing?
Bing was his favorite movie was Music Man with Henry Hill, where the fella comes into town and puts together a band, and the whole town gets excited about it. And he had a powerful presence. If he was in the room and his voice would resonate, he would just capture your attention. And he was very imaginative and open for new ideas. And that's kind of one of the big things. Baseball is so traditional that new ideas sometimes catch them off guard. And I think that's what the Mavericks did to the rest of the teams in the league. We caught them off guard.
And now, so Bing was portrayed, I mean, as a great baseball man. I don't know, and it talked about, Lefty Gomez and the Yankees taking him under his wing and stuff like that. But, it also says, I mean, that he was a great baseball man. And talk a little bit about his baseball knowledge and what kind of baseball man he was.
Well, at that level, he has to run everything. He has to be knowledgeable about everything from concessions to ticket sales, and in this case, find a ball player that can compete in the league. So he was kind of a one-man show. He left pretty much the management on the field to myself and the people that was their responsibility. But he would go out, and he went out and got Jim Bouton, and he went out and got Reggie Thomas, and he got people that could play. Plus, he had to run the business and deal with City Hall, and that's no easy task. So he really had a lot of skills.
Now, Mavericks also were kind of pioneers in the fact that they had one of the first, if not the first, female general manager.
Yes, correct. And it was kind of interesting because by her she didn't have a huge baseball background, but she had a business background, so she took care of business and left baseball to baseball. So everybody really had their own niche, so to speak, and we were so overwhelmed that it was like two ships passing in the night. We didn't have a lot of time to sit around and talk about what was going on. We were in over our heads.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew that, and we all put it together and made it work. Now, in the documentary, they show Bing as a person with, you might say, many hats.
Right.
And he certainly had that, and I think more than anything, he had the vision to give it a try, where everybody else just kind of followed the baseball formula, so to speak.
And it worked. And I mean, if it wasn't for, the Portland Beavers swooping back in, PCL swooping back in, I mean, you guys were drawing record crowds. You were winning, though you didn't win a championship, and you guys got screwed with that because the organizations would bring down players from their upper levels just so you guys couldn't win.
Right, they'd bring in ringers, and Bing also had this vision that he knew Elvis Presley, and he had this vision that Portland would be a major league town, and Elvis would put some money in it.
So now you're a Portland guy. You've been around for a while. Is Portland a major league town?
Well, it is if you believe it is. I mean, I played for the Portland Beavers, and
Mm-hmm.
I saw the success of the Mavericks, and I think in today's world, a lot of it depends upon the television market, and I think with a Seattle rivalry, I think it very well could be. If there was a commitment to it, but I have never seen a commitment like it would take.
Right.
Like Phil Knight has made a commitment to the University of Oregon, and you can see how well they've done. And so it takes some kind of person or something like that to make it fly.
So now, did anybody off the Mavericks during their time here? Did anybody get signed to? There's a couple of guys that got signed to different organizations, correct?
Yeah, well, yeah, and of course Boughton made it all the way back to the big leagues, and Cliff Holland made it to Double-A, and Terry Jones made it to Double-A, and Jim Swanson, the left-handed catcher, made it all the way to the Seattle Mariners as a batting practice pitcher. He had a bar up there, a couple blocks from the stadium called Swannies, which was very, very popular. And he probably made more money than everybody.
Huh.
Pitching for free.
Yeah, a lot of things happen. It's crazy, when you think about it. But, Boughton, Boughton, making his comeback. And Todd Fields, the Bat Boy, became an Academy Award-winning director.
Right, and apparently he's going to do the movie. They're going to do a movie on it. And he's already signed on to write the script and direct it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And also, go ahead.
I think he talked about he was 13 at the time, and I think he's talking about doing a coming-of-age movie, which would be R-rated, which is a little different, which should be kind of fun because there was all this craziness going on, and him as a 13-year-old couldn't be part of it, but he could observe it.
Right. So now, is it true? Now, what was the guy's name that would get up on the dugout with the broom?
Joe Garza.
Joe Garza. Now, is it true that Todd, they said that Todd, in the documentary actually made those brooms in his garage?
Right. Well, Bat Boys and Clubhouse Boys have other tasks other than picking up bats. So certainly you'd have to make the brooms. I think he also had to go down to the wherever the distributor was and wheel in a few cases of beer to go after the game.
What a crew, and the pictures that we're looking at, you got, seems like almost every one of the pictures, you got a guy wearing his jersey on backwards. There's always a bottle of beer in the scene, and just a fun, loving group of guys who, played because they loved the game. I mean, there was no organization, behind it. And yeah, maybe a couple of them, thought, hey, if we play well, we might get a shot, but we never know. But that wasn't the case. You guys wanted to hand it to everybody else who said you couldn't do it.
Yeah, we didn't want to beat them. We wanted to really beat them.
And you guys did.
Yep. Pretty consistently, and all the way until the end, and then they'd bring in the players that were much better and made it impossible for us. I think that Todd Fields, one of his stories is that he, as a bat boy, actually got kicked out of the game because of getting on the umpire on some balls and strikes.
Right. I
don't think a bat boy's ever been kicked out of the game before.
Probably not many. He could be the only one. So also out of, and it's kind of crazy to think about this too, but out of the Portland Mavericks came Big League Chew. And I don't know about you, but I still chew that stuff. I'll find a bag, and every once in a while I'll crave a bag, and it takes me back to when I was a child. And Big League, how did that happen? How did that become?
I think they were sitting around in the dugout in the bullpen, and relief pitchers usually have a lot of time on their hands. It goes from boredom to insanity real quick, and they got tired. Somebody had tobacco, and they thought it was messy and nasty, and they didn't like the idea, so they said, "Well, let's do something different." And somebody said, "Well, why don't you shred up some bubble gum?" And I think they went home. The story goes, I think they went over to Todd Fields, the bat boy's house, and cooked it up in his kitchen.
And that was Rob Nelson, and that was Booten, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool story too. I mean, so you got Todd Fields out of the deal. You've got Todd Fields, Academy Award director, who was a bat boy, and then you've got Big League Chew, which has made buku bucks off of. I mean, I'm sure every baseball player growing up probably chewed, some of that.
And not to mention that Kurt Russell was there in the beginning.
And let's talk a little bit about Kurt. What kind of ball player was Kurt? Obviously, he could play because he was there.
Yeah, man, he had played higher ball, and he was, he's just like he is in the movies. He's one of us. He's a very pleasant person and cares about the game and hustled and did all the things that you needed to do. Now, whether or not he would have taken it to the big leagues or not, who knows? But in reality, is he came and all of a sudden he's doing TV shows and making movies again. And he had made maybe 20 movies before that.
Right.
As he came up through the Walt Disney thing. And I think they had, when he was 10 or 11, they even had comic books out on him. And his character, I think, was called Jamie McPeters. So he was probably a lot like Hannah Montana as she came up through that Disney thing.
Right. So let me ask you a question. So with the success of being Russell and the Portland Mavericks, do you think, and so you've had the Portland Beavers have come and gone again, and then you got the Portland Rockies, and then they've came and gone, and then you got the Beavers back again, and they're gone.
Right.
Do you think? Go ahead, Frank.
They have, but currently you have the Kaiser.
Yeah, you got Volcanoes, yes, and then you got the Hillsboro Hops.
Yeah, and there's probably room for another team somewhere.
Do you think with the success that Bing and you guys had with the Mavericks, do you think in turn that has kind of hurt the baseball scene in Portland? Because I mean, the Beavers, at first, a couple of years, their attendance will be up, but then it just dies down. Do you think that success kind of hurt baseball in Portland?
No, I think it just changed it a little bit, meaning that like you have Salem and you have Hillsborough, there's probably room for one in Gresham. So rather than one big centralized team in the middle, maybe you have 3 or 4 in the area. You know, because nowadays, from Portland to Beaverton, from Portland to Hillsborough is kind of a commitment when you drive because of the traffic.
Right.
However, and it appears that the area can support it. So I don't see somebody driving all the way from Gresham to Hillsborough to watch the baseball game. So maybe they ought to put another team in. So
yeah.
maybe the new model is 4 teams in the metropolitan area, and that would certainly liven things up. Maybe you ought to bring another independent team and put it in Gresham.
You know, it's kind of funny. Producer Brian and I were talking about, an independent league team again, and it's been a while. I don't think Major League Baseball allows it, but I know back in the early 90s, they had independent league teams in like the Cal League. I think they had like the Salinas Spurs, and I think at one time the Reno Silver Sox was a independent league team as well.
Hey, Frank, are you willing to help manage for us if we get a team?
Well, I don't know. Things have changed, People might not be as tolerant of my style managing as they were then.
It would be fun, though, wouldn't it?
Oh, yeah. Social media would probably gobble me up.
Either that or you'd be a star like you were before.
That is true.
You never know. I got a lot of flexibility. And the thing was, in those days, it was almost as much of a newspaper story as it was a baseball story, because they had a morning newspaper, and they had, which was the Oregonian, and they had an afternoon newspaper, which was the Journal. Now they barely have a newspaper.
That is true.
And so there was always interesting stories because the ball players were interesting people, and they were fun to write about.
So now, when I was talking to you the other day, you were telling me that everything in the documentary, that's the way it was, and that you'll give me a little bit of dessert. Is there a couple of stories that you can tell us that wasn't in the documentary?
Oh, yeah. It was kind of towards the end of the year, and we'd already won our division, and we're getting ready for the playoffs. So we're playing in Walla Walla. And to do something interesting, I put 9 ball players on the field, put everybody else in the stands and bought them beer, and all 9 players played all 9 positions. So they rotated each inning, and we won the game.
That's awesome.
We had 5-4. I think it took about 15 pages of for the scorekeeper to keep track of everything. And it's never been done in the history of baseball, and probably won't ever be done again.
Did you see, kind of off the subject a little bit, did you see what the Tampa Bay Rays, Joe Madden, pulled off here last week or the week before? So Tommy Two-Tone in the 80s had the hit Ginny, 8675309. Did you see that he built his lineup off of that song?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Well, he did what now?
His lineup for a game was 8675309.
Oh, did he?
Ginny, yes. And, I thought it was hilarious because, number one, it shows you the sense of humor that, Joe Madden does. And, people take, the game way too serious. And
right, and nothing says but mixing it up like that isn't going to even make it more fun and better anyway,
Right.
You can easily outthink yourself in baseball.
Oh, yeah. So give us one more story, quickly.
Anyway, the toughest thing of the putting all 9 ball players is to convince your left-handed pitcher to be a catcher, because he's got to catch, and the left-handed pitcher has to play third base and second base. two positions that they don't play.
Right.
I think one of them was that we were on a bus trip from Seattle to Boise, and the bus breaks down. So everybody gets out, and I say, okay. And I gave them all a number, like who's the most important. And, of course, I figured I was because I had to make the lineup out, and then the picture and stuff. And that was the order of the hitchhikers. And if you could get to Boise, you could play. And if you couldn't get there, then you can't play. And off I went. And amazingly, the whole team got there before the game.
That's awesome. That is funny. So once again, we have Frank Peters, former manager of the Portland Mavericks, and also he was, people forget that Frank was a top prospect with the Orioles at one time, and he came out of Oregon State, correct?
Yeah, went there on a basketball scholarship.
Wow.
We played in the Final Four with Mel Counts and Charlie Baker, who won the Heisman Trophy, and Jim Jarvis, who was All-American, and Steve Pauly, who was All-American in track. Everybody played two sports. In those days, you had to play two sports. Now they don't do it at all.
And what was, so you were drafted by the Orioles, and what was that experience like?
Well, I asked them who was, basically I was a third baseman, and I asked them, I said, well, who do you have at third? And they said, well, we've got this guy, Brooks Robinson. And I said, well, that doesn't sound like a big league name. I think I'll sign with you guys. Well, 16 years later, he was still making the All-Star team. So, and in those days, there was no free agency, so they owned you.
Right.
So that's where you were. So you had to live with it. So a lot of the Maverick stuff is you're never going to really make very much money. I mean, the money that they make now is so different than then. So really, you did play for the love of the game, and you played for it because you didn't want to go back to Great Falls, Montana, and work in the hardware store. You
Right.
wanted to have fun and hit baseballs and yell at women.
So the years that you managed the Portland Mavericks, so let's go back to 74, 75 in the Northwest League. Can you what kind of talent was in the Northwest League? No, didn't Ozzie Smith play with Walla Walla?
Oh, Rick Sutcliffe.
Okay.
He was announcer now, was Cy Young winner.
Yep.
He played for Bellingham, and then oh man, they had a bunch of them come out of the league. But I think he's the one that's still around that you're knowledgeable about, seeing TV announcing.
Yep.
But they had, they have hundreds and hundreds of ball players that go on because some of the best talent was because we were so obnoxious and they wanted to spank us so bad, they would send some of their better talent to play against us. So I think we upgraded the league a great deal.
In the Northwest League, it's still a great league, with Hillsboro, and you got Salem Kaiser in there now, and
right now all you need is a team in Gresham, and you you would actually have pretty good rivalry.
Yeah.
And then maybe one in Vancouver. Maybe you could practically have a whole league in this area.
Give it a little fancy, give the rivalry a fancy name, because now you got the I-5 rivalry, which they call the I-5 rivalry, which is Salem Kaiser, Eugene, and Hillsboro. But Hillsboro is not on I-5, so that's stupid. But, well, once again, we have the always entertaining Frank Peters. And, Frank, we appreciate you coming on. And I would love to get up there and have a sit down and have a burger with you at the East Bank sometime soon. And definitely chat more baseball with you.
Okay, anytime. And thanks a lot. And get out and see that Battered Bastards of Baseball. It's really very uplifting and has a happy ending.
I love the uniforms, and I've seen it like 4 or 5 times now. I keep going back on Netflix. I love it. It opened my eyes because you hear stories about the Portland Mavericks, but, I didn't witness it. And, I know a lot of people in this area did, and they said it was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And It was fun family entertainment, and you guys were crazy. And
Yes,
so,
we were.
once again, go ahead and see it, Battered Bastards of Baseball. And from that, we have former manager Frank Peters. Frank, once again, it was a privilege.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and we'll talk to you later, Frank.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, thank you. So there you go. So once again, Netflix, it's free. Go see the Battered Bastards of Baseball. I loved it. Brian loved it. What did you love most about it?
Well, I remember as a kid hearing about it. I mean, I was fairly young, 4 or 5 at the time when they were, playing. And getting to Portland, my parents didn't go to Portland a lot, so it was like, wow, living in Salem, it's close, but not quite there, but there was a lot of coverage about it. They were always in the paper. TV news even talked about it. It was this crazy bunch of guys having fun playing a game that I loved, and just to hear it now is like, wow. And kind of like you, I didn't get up there to see him, but I'm like, wow, what could have been if I would have been there? How cool would that be today as compared to like the early 70s?
Yeah.
Fun. Lots of fun.
Like I said, I feel like I've been screwed. I mean, really, because, that's the way baseball is meant to be. Fun. Not only for the fan, but the player. And now,
right.
It's too businessy now. And,
it's all about money.
I mean, it is. It's all about money, and you and I were talking about the All-Star game, which was played on Tuesday night, and the Home Run Derby on Monday. And I think I maybe watched 5 or 10 minutes. It's funny because I get all excited about it coming up, and then I sit and watch it, and then it dawns on me it's the All-Star game.
Yeah.
And people, the normal baseball fan can't fathom or understand what it's like working inside. And you did so with the Blazers, and so you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
It's a job. And, as much as I love baseball, I cannot sit. I mean, I'll watch bits and pieces of games on TV. I could go to a game, no problem, in person. But as for sitting and watching it, and get clips of it, I have a hard time. And, the All-Star game is one of them, knowing that the starters get their 2 at-bats,
and they're gone.
They're on a charter flight before the game is over. And people will tell me, no way. And I'm like, it's true. I mean, one, they don't want to be there. They would rather be off with their family for the All-Star break, a couple of days that they get. Season's so long and they don't get that time.
Well, it's not only the players, it's the entertainers. Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, when I went to the 98 All-Star game and covered that, which was a blast. But I've never worked so hard in my life to get quotes, interviews, and to cover it. They were there, sang the national anthem, and they were there for like 3 innings, and then, poof, they're gone. Even with some of the radio personalities that were there.
Right.
They were there to say they were there, and poof, they were gone.
Yeah. And the Home Run Derby, it's all fine and dandy for the fan, but... I mean, come on. Puig went over. There's no way in the heck. You could tell Puig wasn't trying. I mean, he was swinging from the hip.
Got some nerves going on, too, I think. Finally something got to him, rattled him a little bit.
But yeah, it's kind of fun to watch. And, and then playoffs, man, by the time you hit playoffs, you've played probably close to 200 games at that time, with spring training and extended spring training, depending on what league you're in. Players come to the ballpark, and this is no joke. Players come to the ballpark with their cars packed. Seriously, with their cars packed, hoping that they will lose in the playoffs so they can get on the road and get home, because they got a couple weeks off before most of them have to go to,
Winter League
fall training, in Strucks down in Arizona or Florida, and and it just extends, kind of the misery. I mean, yeah, you got a couple of the guys who are freaks who really enjoy it, but most of those guys, man, they'll ride the ride for as long as it goes, but they want to get off at that point.
But for the most part, they're making the same amount of money, a little bit of a stipend for playoff games, but not because they're getting that contract guaranteed. And I don't know what the number is for playoff games, but it's not like their regular pay throughout the year.
Right. And so, I remember my season with Lancaster in 06. And so we were up in the playoff hunt until the last day. And we had played an afternoon game, and we lost, I think, like 12-11. And so Lake Elsinore I can't remember who they were playing, but Lake Elsinore had to win to get in. And I could remember just sitting around and listening to like the first couple of innings in the clubhouse, but everybody else was gone. All the players were packing, their cars. And, fortunately, Lake Elsinore won and Lancaster didn't get in. Everybody was happy, including, the manager. And I mean, they wanted to go home. It was a long, drawn out season. And I get home, Salem Kaiser's in the playoffs. That was one of their first, runs of their nice little 3 or 4 year run with Steve Decker. I remember going to the first game, and that was it. I just could not watch any more baseball. After going through a 146 game season, 44 game season, I had enough. I love baseball. But I had enough. I was tired. I was ready to get on with football season. And
it's a lot of work. I mean,
it's
you think it's fun. It's baseball, yeah, but you're there early for batting practice. You're there for probably going over, nowadays tape, on a pitcher. Plus you're there late till after the game. Plus you're doing batting practice, plus the game and everything else. And then if you got people, you have to sign autographs or have to be at an event. You're putting a lot of time.
It's a grind. It really is a grind. A typical day in a baseball player, minor leagues, usually starts at 9 or 10 in the morning because they've got to go to the gym and work out. And then they'll go home for a couple of hours and sit by the poolside or whatever they do. And, then you got, early BP. Or, you have a roving instructor coming in and so you got to be at the ballpark at 1. And then it's just you're there until the game is over. And so, you roll off the field about 10:30, 11 o'clock. You sit around the clubhouse and you eat a little bit. And, most of those guys wanted to get out and hit the bars and get on with the nightlife. But, it's a grind. It's not what people think it is. Yeah, the money at the major league level is great. The money at the minor league level sucks. AAA is all right, AA is all right, but below that, it's terrible. These guys are literally getting hosed. They're working below poverty level. And so eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and it's crazy. So once again, I'm Norm. I'd like to our sponsors. So we are part of the 9-inning know-it-all crew. Mr. Josh and Kelly up there in Longview, Washington. Also baseballdudes.com, the hat right there. Check them out. Chris Gazelle, baseballdudes.com. basebypros.com. Mitch Canham, who is a catcher in the Washington Nationals organization, and he definitely knows about the grind, but he's having fun, He's having fun. His dad, Mark, who does our shirts, and so I'm wearing the Highway 30 Music Fest. So Mark Canham of MDM Designs. Proper Cuts Barbershop, Carlos and the boys down there on Baker. Go say Norm sent you down there, and he'll give you $1 or $2 off a haircut, possibly. Possibly he'll charge you $1 or $2 more. Who knows? Baseballisms, baseballism.com. Go to their website, buy something, check out, enter Clubhouse Chatter, 15% off just like that. We stream live all of our shows on yamhilltoday.com. Check it out. And I believe we got them all today, Brian. Holy cow.
You did it.
That's a first.
Hey, once in a while.
I think I will end that. Guys, I can't encourage you enough to go check out the Battered Bastards of Baseball. Loved it. I'll give 3 thumbs up, even though I have 2 thumbs. It's a great story. You know, those guys, they got screwed. They were so good that they played for championships of the Northwest League, and the organizations had to send guys down from like the AA level to high A level just to beat them. And so that doesn't happen anymore. Well, it doesn't happen anymore. There are no more independent teams playing minor league baseball. So check it out. Netflix is free. I'm Norm. That's producer Brian. We're going to probably take a couple of weeks off, I believe, and we'll come back, and hopefully we'll have the Way brothers, who produced and directed the Battered Bastards of Baseball, on one of our next shows. So thanks for watching and listening, and have a great day.